This is a podcast which does not shy away from difficult and vulnerable topics. The content is of an adult nature and we do swear at times.
Welcome to the Autistic Licensed podcast. I'm Siana and I'm in Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland.
I'm Leo in London.
We invite you to listen in on our conversations as we experiment with unmasking in an autistic space. We talk about what it means to discover we're autistic as adults, especially with established careers as therapists. We want people to know that autistic therapists exist and to broaden the conversation about neurodiversity. You're so welcome to join us, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. We hope you'll find something of interest and connection here.
Happy birthday
To the podcast.
to the
On our
podcast.
day of recording.
On the day, yeah, we're recording on November 11th, and that was the day that we launched Autistic License in 2023.
Yes, 11/11.
11/11 at
11/11.
11/11. Yeah.
Because we're autistic.
Oh, yes. Nice, neat numbers lined up symmetrically.
Like little matchsticks.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you see? That's what I see when I look at it in my mind.
No, but I do now. No, I just see digital segments for clock because then they can be mirrored horizontally or vertically. Matches can't because they're not vertically symmetrical.
Yeah, but I can see matches. 1 1 1 1 1 1
Yeah.
1 1. And you know that thing that like if you pull one match away, then they won't all catch fire. So like if they're in a line, but then if you pull one down, then it would stop the thread.
Okay. I had not heard that as like a phrase or something, but yes, I can see why that would happen.
It's like used sometimes to demonstrate how sometimes you just have to step out of something to stop it becoming inflamed. And I don't know what the relevance is in bringing that up. Whenever I see a row of matches and I see the idea of if one steps away, then it changes or it
There
stops.
is some visual about that, isn't there, that goes around
Maybe
on social
that's
media, I
that's
think.
where it's coming from. But for some reason that came into my mind, and the idea that you would stop it if you just pulled that one of the matches down. But of course, you know, we couldn't pull one
But
of
we
the
didn't,
matches
and
down.
here we are,
It
40-something episodes in.
It went out. Yeah. So, how are we
Yeah.
collectively?
Collectively, I don't know.
How are we as individuals and as a podcast? As a podcast, we're all right. We're good, aren't
Yeah.
we? We've started to get communication from people who want to be guests.
Yes,
Which is very
quite a
exciting.
few, and all of them
Quite
like
a
really
few. Yeah.
excited about all
We're
of them.
looking forward to starting
Yes.
to meet you. And we've had some emails with ideas about the group
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yes, yes.
Which is nice. And yes, so I think it's whenever I got a text thing this morning or a notification, whatever they're called, to say, "Hello, Autistic, it's your birthday." And that's how I realised that it was the 11th of
I
the
didn't
11th.
see that. I didn't see that.
Did you just know?
Yeah, I just knew. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I
okay.
didn't actually. I actually, unlike me, I have not put an annual recurring event for the day in my
Yes.
calendar, which I do with everything else. I was reminded because I had one of those on this day last year posts, and it was the graphic for our launch.
Okay.
In fact, it was yesterday because we put it up the day before.
Okay.
That we're launching tomorrow morning at 11:11.
Yes. Okay. So let's move on. What will we explore and untangle and whatever else we do with things today.
Did you see I know there's been a lot of texts over the last couple of days and some get pushed up, but the photo of my Mount Fuji escape key.
No.
Oh, wait a minute.
What are you saying? Is this something that you've texted to me?
Yes, it's in a WhatsApp. I WhatsApped you a couple of pictures of it. Now I can't find it.
When did you do this?
Yesterday, the day before.
Oh, sorry. No, I've never seen that before.
This is what I pull the keycaps out of the keyboard with. So I'm just going to pull out a little keycap that I bought for the escape key on the keyboard.
Yeah, okay.
It's really very beautiful. I actually think you might like this. Okay. I mean, you'll think it's stupid, obviously. It is a handmade Mount Fuji.
I like that.
It's lovely. It's got clouds and snow and everything. It is absolutely...
It's lovely. I don't know how I missed a photograph of that.
You'll see a photograph of it like this, close up, and then one of the actual keyboard. I'll highlight it.
I'm very sorry that I did not see that.
It was just before, like minutes before my mum called on Saturday. That's when it was, I think. And then the whole day went in a very, very different direction, obviously.
Well, then maybe I didn't actually see it. I just saw the last one or paid attention to the last one. So here's something that you don't know. I started to look into my family tree. And I...
Just now, just recently?
Yeah.
Aha.
Just a couple of days ago.
Oh, wow.
And so here's what happened. I was tracking back. So the hint that I got was on my maternal grandmother's paternal side. It just started to show up all these things. And I was able to look at censuses and marriage records and check who these people were, and I found this woman. I've got so excited because I feel there's something about her. And she's my granny's grandmother, and she actually died the year that my granny was born, so they wouldn't have known each other. And she had a sister who's got the same birthday as me. And I've never known anybody that has the same birthday as me. And I've always felt like I didn't really, I never knew where I came from. So it's really new to have this interest. But it was also, it's oh, okay. So if that birthday isn't really a common one or something, and then now it's coming up, I don't know, it did something for me. And then I kept tracking back. And so this is Granny's sister, okay? Then that person's paternal grandfather.
This will be your great grandfather or another great.
Maybe another great. I don't know. Anyhow, guess when his birthday is?
No.
My birthday!
No.
So there are two. This is the first line that I've tracked. And there's these two people, two generations apart, that have the same birthday. And I, most of them had 6 or 8 kids. And I scanned all the birthdays because it was more looking at the years. But none of the other ones rang any bells. They weren't birthdays that I know. And I wasn't expecting that there would be another one that would come up, but it did. So it was just weird, but there was something about that, and starting to realize somewhere that I came from, and that maybe then that had some kind of significance in that family line. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know if anybody, most people are interested in who the people were, and maybe it's an autistic thing to be interested in dates.
I think
we were talking about dates at the beginning of things.
That's right.
It really did something for me. And I don't know why I have never done anything like this before, because it's just absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
You know?
Did you do this like through one of the websites like Ancestry?
Ancestry, yeah.
Because they
Ancestry.
often do a little free 2-day search. Is that what
No,
happened?
I paid for the kit because I want them to do the kit, because you've done it before through 23andMe.
Yeah,
so
genetics.
I paid for the wee kit, so the wee kit is coming in the post.
Oh,
but
fantastic.
in the meantime, you can do all the searches.
Okay.
In fact, I might have a 3-month trial with the searches and then have to pay after the 3 months. I don't know. I can't remember what the whole thing was. But whatever I did put in, which was the basics, brought up these other family trees that I was able to cross-reference and find these people. I think it is accurate because I was being accurate and other people have done the work locally, for to be able to put it across. But it has really fascinated me.
That is amazing. Because when I did my gene sequencing thing, it wasn't through an ancestry website.
I thought you did it through 23andMe.
I did.
Yeah.
So they don't do that thing with
do they not?
Researching you can get connected to people who have also registered with them, and there are lots because it's such a big one.
Yeah.
And so I do get regular emails, and this is obviously several years later, saying, well, here are your new third and fourth cousins who have just kind of registered. They're all in America, the ones that I'm related to. But I think people in my family have started this kind of thing off, and I do need to get some access because I think there has been some work done. Mm-hmm. In my case, it's not as good as your coincidence because your coincidence is date related and it's very specific. But my mum's family, my maternal grandparents, were born to Belarusian immigrants on my grandmother's side and Polish immigrants on my grandfather's side, on my mum's side.
Yes.
That's her parents. And they came over to this country at the turn of the last century. Yes. They were Jewish, escaping persecution in Eastern Europe, and they settled in where a lot of Jewish immigrants did at the time, around kind of Bethnal Green, Whitechapel area of East London. It was a Jewish ghetto, essentially. My dad's family part of them were French Huguenot. Now, this is the bit that he will know quite a bit about because he's done some work on this. Yeah. But they came over at least 100 years earlier than that, but they settled in exactly the same area. Okay. Just about 2 or 3 generations
in the
apart.
early 1800s.
Maybe earlier. I don't know. This is what I don't know. So maybe I'll edit in a little voiceover part here where I have spoken to my dad. Maybe I'll bring my dad onto the show and get him to tell me about the French. Show. I've just remembered an anecdote which I don't think we'll keep in probably, and it's not really relevant, but I have to say it out loud now because I've thought of it, which is that a guy that I used to work with, he's a real history buff, and he actually runs one of the big reenactment societies. They specialise in late period Romans in Britain. So they've been in films like Gladiator and stuff. They get hired to do all that kind of thing. Because it's about kind of ancient British history, they do every now and then attract some rather unsavoury people who want to talk about pureness of blood and no foreign blood in me, and I've traced back, and we go. Now, he had a really lovely argument against those people, which unfortunately my autistic mind immediately found a flaw in. But basically, there's you, that's one person, you've got 2 parents, so there's 2, they've got 2 parents, so that's what, so exponentially, as you've just demonstrated probably on your computer screen or whatever, that's the branch, that's the tree, it just multiplies and multiplies, obviously. And what he was basically saying is, you don't have to go back very many generations, and he did have the number, maybe I need to look that up, until you have more direct ancestors than the population was at that time of the whole of Great Britain.
Okay.
So his argument was, well, then, so you definitely do have foreign blood in you because your relatives outstrip the population. But of course, that doesn't work because you're counting many people twice. by then.
Yes, I
You
get
know,
it.
your
Yeah.
great uncle
Yes.
is the same person actually as your great something else.
Yes.
You know, because that's how that works. But
Yeah.
but it was a lovely argument, and it did shut a lot of those people up because they didn't
Yes.
necessarily have the autistic brain to spot the flaw in it that I did. Another one, and this I looked up yesterday, not knowing obviously that you'd been at this.
Yes.
That this was going to be relevant. Of all the people, everybody who's ever been born, from the first human to today, all the births added all up, right? How many of those people are walking the earth today? And it's about 1 in 18.
Huh.
It's a huge amount.
I don't get that. Say that again.
If you gather all humanity that's ever lived and is living now, all in one number, everybody who's ever been born.
So why do you say 1 in 18?
Because they know.
1 in 18.
You would think, given that we've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, that almost every human that's ever been born is today dead.
Yeah.
But actually, way more than you might imagine are actually alive today.
I don't see how that would be the case. I don't understand.
Because the population of the world, even in my lifetime, has gone up 20%. It's gone from 7 to 8 billion just since I was born.
Oh.
Okay, hold on. This is Leo here with my fact-checking and editing hat on, and those numbers were incredibly wrong and horrifically misremembered. The actual figures are that when I was born in 1966, the world population was 3.4 billion. It is now 8.1 billion, and therefore has more than doubled, never mind 20%. It's huge. The population, if you go back 200 years... it's a minuscule amount of humans. Okay, well, that one is actually true, and I can give you the number. In 1804, the world population had just topped 1 billion, because we were dying a lot, and now...
But everybody had loads of children.
Yeah, most of them died.
Well, not in the things that I was looking up, but
No, that's true, but that's
ago.
well, I'm talking about the evolution of humanity, not just the last, not just civilization. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to look that up again, because I looked it up yesterday.
Why did you look that up yesterday?
Because somebody told me years ago, like when I was a kid, the statistic was 1 in 5, which I didn't believe at the time. In other words, 1 in 5 of the humans ever born were alive today.
Yeah.
Because of that exponential increase in population.
I don't think it's ever really meant anything to me until you just said that. Then now I understand what that means.
Okay. Oh, what, the word exponential?
No, I know what the word exponential. Well, but some people just throw that word around. So
yes. No,
maybe I could actually mean that. But no, I don't mean that. I do know what that means, but yes. I never really thought about population.
Okay.
About what you've just said about 1 in 18. I wouldn't have been able to really get my head around that until I've now sat with it and thought about that and recognised why. Understood why. I know that that population is, everybody understands the word population, those words, population growth or explosion or whatever, but
that's right.
It doesn't really feel real.
That's because I do that thing which I've always done of comparing one number with another number, and
yes,
what does that mean? Because that's the only way I can understand. Again, we're back to practical examples, actually, because I can't do maths at all. But I can do comparisons of amounts of things or comparisons of timelines.
Yes.
That kind of thing. That's it. Not only can I do it, I mean, that's really exciting to me.
You like that?
Yes. Oh, my teeth are so smooth.
Why? Because they've been cleaned? I hate that. I can't let a hygienist anywhere near my teeth. My dentist just does it.
Well, this is the first time I've been to the hygienist there, and she was great. The last one I had was horrible.
But the sound?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. The next time I'm taking earbuds with me, and I shall explain there. The sound was bad, and there's just one little area where the pain just went, it was just, Yeah. My thing though it's not the sound or the pain. For me, the worst thing is breathing and swallowing. I am terrified the whole time that I'm going to choke or that I need to swallow. And I do usually explain that. In fact, they're now very good. She was great because she said, anytime you need to swallow, anytime you need to just put your hand up, I'll immediately stop. And she didn't get pissed off with me. But the last hygienist I had did. And she was horrible, actually. Because I explained I've got a really over-anxious gag reflex. And I'm really sorry, but I am probably going to have to breathe and swallow and stuff a lot. And she started tutting. And then at the end, I kind of jokingly said to her, I'm really sorry. I would imagine that was a real pain in the arse to do. Hoping, like a normal human might, that she would say, oh, don't worry about it. I understand. She went, yeah. Motherfucker.
Oh, dear. I don't even go. My dentist just does what she can with my teeth.
That's what I wanted to ask you, actually. So let's just go back to that a little bit. Because obviously I can see that you are excited by it.
Yeah.
And part of that is just, I get that it's exciting to have a new interest and to be able to delve into something new. But I was wondering, even though it's obviously only just now, what that is doing to your sense of yourself.
I just get the impression that it's opened up something around having roots that are not dependent on the more immediate family members that I had and that I knew. So in other words, I didn't feel like I fitted in with my immediate family or with my extended family who were living at the time. But who knows, maybe the ancestors I fitted in with, so it's that kind of, sense of having ancestral lineage that's maybe much more akin to my way of being. And who knows? How am I really going to be able to find out these people's personalities? I don't know. But then some of it, it's not based on fact. It's to do with what it does in terms of your energetic wellness. Yes. And I believe that we can find ways to link with all of that. And there's something in my spirituality to return to that topic that says that actually I'm open to whatever comes through and connecting with the well ancestors and healing some of the legacy stuff that's been passed down that I mightn't know why it's there, but it's in my DNA. And, neuroscience has shown that we carry DNA 14 generations back, so traumas that went on then will be in us epigenetically. So I think it's just opening up a whole realm. And in, that the podcast that we are currently editing has a wee bit in it from 3 weeks ago, whatever, that we recorded about the supernatural superstition Halloween.
That's right.
And we didn't branch on that day into autistic spirituality. But autistic spirituality interests me, and also how my spirituality was also in some ways limited or colonized by Christianity. But actually, where are my Celtic roots? Where are, where would that have gone if I hadn't have been Christianized in my teens? Where would that have gone? Not to mention the colonization of Ireland,
your land,
my land a way back, and what that did to my Irish heritage. I'm in the land of Ireland, but I, was brought up very anglicised, and there's something even like
within a border that was historically brand new.
Yes,
still is.
Yes. So there's so much there that you know, whenever I am exposed to some of that Irish stuff that on a very deep level resonates, but yet I haven't looked into or, you know, I go into it and then get on with life. And I don't know if there's just something where it's all part of the sea. This is all, you know, and nobody was doing any of that stuff around me. So if that was in my bones and that was my yearning and that was my life giving well, you know, if that wasn't around me when I was growing up, then I would have felt like a fish out of water and like I didn't fit in, quite apart from being autistic.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, on a spiritual level, I wasn't on a soul level, and, you know, and the kind of depth that the kind of person that I was, kid that I was not being matched by the living family members around me.
Yes.
You know, but who knows about the ancestral stuff? I don't know about any of that yet.
Yes.
So, and then, of course, and then my mum married an Englishman, you know?
Yeah.
And that would have been, as far as in this one line that I tracked back, apart from this Scottish man that came over, everybody was Northern Irish. So it was a departure for her to marry an Englishman. And obviously that's in my bloodline now too, where it's not in the bloodlines of my cousins.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
So that was a departure, and that's in me as well. You know, it's not all generations and generations and generations of
only
Irish.
half. Only half.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, which is different.
It's interesting to me. I think there's something then that we have in common again, where you've got one half, and actually in both of our cases, it's our mums, where there is this. Well, I don't know. I'm actually making some assumptions here about you, so I'll just speak for me, and then you tell me if it's the same for you. My roots are much more clear in my mind on my mum's side, and I think that's because they're a bit more exotic. Maybe, you know, it is foreign. It is about being out of place, and it is about minority, and it is about persecution and fleeing and trauma, which I suppose does have resonance with me just in my own life as an autistic person.
Yes.
And also I think that if you've got something, I don't know. No, I'm going to leave it there. That's what I'm trying to say, that there's more that I know of going on in more recent history on my mum's side. And so that's where I feel my roots are, even though, of course, this is what I meant when I was saying to you it's only half, because I have to remind myself of that. It's only half. There's an entire 50% of me that isn't that. And I know a little bit more about that now. So what I do is, until I did the genome thing, then that was a history trip.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing from you. It's about your roots. It's about where you've come from. It's about going into the distant past, as far as you can go, probably, you know. But what it does open up as well, and this is of less interest to me, and I wonder about you, is it'll open up all the contemporary relatives that you have now. There'll be, you know, you will be able to find second, third and fourth cousins.
Yes.
Easily now.
Yeah.
You know, because that network will suddenly exist because of the service that you've kind of signed up to.
Yes.
And I have this, but it's only on my mum's side that I find that those people, because I suppose, actually, I don't know why, but as I say, it's all on my mum's side and they're all in America, almost all in America. This was, by the way, there is a story, which I probably told you, when my great-grandparents fled Belarus and Poland, respectively. At least on the Belarusian side, they were going to America.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible journey. And they got to England, and that was enough. They'd had enough. They got to London and they stopped. But one of the younger brothers did continue on and then lost touch. And so now I am back in touch with that line in the United States. Yes.
I'm going back to what you said. Is this the same for, I'm thinking what the question was.
It was about, I suppose I was expressing how I feel more connected roots-wise to the people who have come from somewhere else and were othered and were persecuted and...
Yeah, but I don't know that kind of information. As far as I can see so far, they were all lived around the same area for hundreds and hundreds of years, like not so far away from where I live now.
I suppose what I was thinking about was more the persecution and othering, because you were talking there about cultural and generational trauma and colonisation.
Mm-hmm. I guess, but I think that's different than what you were saying in that they weren't displaced. I haven't got any hints yet of anybody actually...
No, not geographically.
Being, yes, geographic. But of course, I mean, yes, because I always loved history. And of course, she was going in to, whenever I was talking about the year, she was like, oh, let me just check that out. That was when Home Rule, I was like, just explain to me
wonderful.
what you mean. Because she knows all that stuff and I don't. I'm not very good at that kind of thing. But she was finding out all of that and relating to some of the things that I was saying and bringing in.
Yes.
Those kind of things. She's great, really, actually. Imagine that she just knows all that stuff.
Yes.
That's amazing. So, yeah, she's able to kind of pull in the history knowledge.
And there's something as well that I kind of have to contradict myself now, because that, of course, if my dad's side come from French Huguenots, well, that was the same thing. That was religious persecution that made them flee from France to come here.
Information. Okay.
No, Protestants who were persecuted by the Catholics and
in France
had to flee France and came...
In what year?
From the 1500s to the 1800s. It was quite a long, 16th, 17th and 18th centuries.
Yes.
Two significant waves, so I'm reading now, two significant waves of Huguenots migrated to England. The first after the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572, and the second where 50,000. I mean, that was not, again, you see, you're looking at tiny little populations. Why is it important that we know these things? Is it part of, just the autistic search for having a place in the world? I don't mean geographically.
But no, I don't see it as being a specifically autistic thing, really, although I can see how I could make it into it. But I see it more of like a personal development or healing in the sense of how it affected me by seeing the birth dates and thinking maybe I'm meant to be here.
Yes.
I don't think that I've had
isn't that about
anything like that.
Sense of having a place in the world. That's just what I was saying.
But not as an autistic person.
No, not as an autistic person. I mean that
my existence.
Yes.
It goes right back to that stuff that we talked about. The TA
don't exist.
Back to that of something in me. Weird though it sounds to associate it with dates. Something in me goes, but actually, I was meant to be born on that date. And I don't have whenever I was within Christianity for that length of time, and I believed a lot of the, dogma around God creates you in your mother's womb and determines your days and things like that. So I was told that, I was comforted in inverted commas by that. For the time that I just accepted that, which, as we said, was relatively short because I always had all my issues with it. But for a time within that, I thought, I really am, quote unquote, meant to be here. I am special. Wow. I am, here for such a time as this, that kind of thing. Yes. And that was the only time I had that. I didn't have that just because of existing. I had it because I was given it in that framework for that period of time. And then I gave it up when I gave up that framework. But there's something in these numbers and in this birth date that has given me something similar of a sense of maybe that was part of something bigger. And I don't know if I'm going to listen back on this or if I'm going to question this again another month. This only happened yesterday or the day before. Something in it gave me that sense of maybe I am actually significant in this line.
Yes. And, it doesn't matter, I'm going to say, what you make of this in a week or a month. This is a very real feeling that you have right now.
Yes, and maybe it doesn't matter why it's come, but it's
no.
come.
Yes.
In a way that it hasn't been there apart from those times in Christianity.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to maintain that there's an autistic part of this, not necessarily in who you are and who they are, but just in how you have found your way to that feeling. And it was by, in this particular case, making some significance of some numbers and the actual interest and focus that you had in getting there in the first place. Yes. I mean, there's no other way that we can do these things because it's not like we're not going to be autistic in the future or we weren't before. So kind of who cares?
Yes. But what I do, the aspect of spirituality or intuitive, whatever, I really got no words for this because I don't know what constitutes spirituality and what doesn't.
Whatever you say it does.
My way of going on my own instincts was that out of everybody, this woman, I don't know what it was, something about her got me. And when I went into those records, that's what led me on this path. And the way it's something like where if I work with images or I facilitate a client to work with images you just know what you know. And there's no point in analysing or why did you say that or anything like that. You just ask for the answer and the answer comes. And there was something around what I did with that, that making sense in the moment now of it makes me feel like whatever way all of that's connected, my psyche chose to use it in a certain way to get the need met. And my psyche meaning my individual psyche as well as the collective unconscious that feeds into all of that and uses whatever it needs to use to plug into something primal that somebody needs an answer to. And it had that kind of quality to it.
I think this is what life's all about.
Yeah. The questions that in some ways you don't know you're asking. But then there's also very much like that episode. So actually, listeners, just to track this, there's one that we're editing at the minute and we talk a little bit about superstition and the supernatural and spirituality. And I guess that's where I think that being that kind of person is very key to who I've always been. And I don't see it as superstition, but I also don't fit into the cold logic of like a stereotypical autistic person. There definitely is a strong intuitive sensing my way and knowing what I know and trusting that no matter how it might fly in the face of other rational arguments or whatever. I think I'm wanting to explore that again, and that's what I was saying earlier on about feeling like in some ways that had been colonised away by the Christianisation, but it's still there underneath.
There's a huge amount of resonance in the broadest sense about what you're saying about yourself there, and I'm not going to be able to put it into words. I will try and do something around it. It's about the stereotype for a start, yes, of the cold logician who is the autistic, usually man or boy, but an autistic person. Actually, I think that exists. You know how you say that the traits, the symptoms, the displays or whatever, the characterizations and definitions of what autism is are based on the traumatic responses of an autistic person, right? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Distress responses, that's right. And I think that's where that part of the stereotype comes from. I'll just say I have to make sense of things, which is everything, that doesn't make sense. As a human being trying to get to grips with life and having an autistic brain, I have to try to make sense. And so part of me becomes sciencey. prove this? Where's the evidence? How does that and that and that equal that? That isn't my true self. That isn't, it's covering up the autistic, the authentic autistic self. And I think until you get on top of that, and I think at the moment anyway, most autistic people don't get that opportunity. That's where they sit. They sit in the neurotypical world, logicking themselves through to try to stay safe and try to make sense and try to have connection.
Okay.
But what you're describing, I don't think that's weird or goes against being an autistic person at all. I think that whole, how we make nonsense of, the non-empathic stereotype, it isn't there. There's such a deep felt sense, I think. And in this case, we're talking about our history, our roots, and where that comes from. That's a very, very deep felt sense. But in order to make contact with that and allow ourselves to follow those instincts and really feel those things, we have to let go of the sciencey, logical, all of that stuff. That is our survival. We have to let that go, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Unless you've become aware and you've done the work, and you can start to then let go of that. It's the same as me as a therapist. That's my experience of a therapist. As a therapist, is I want to know that the structure of the theory and that is there, but it wasn't until I was able to start to lean more into my instincts that I always think of it as let go of the edge of the swimming pool, At a much deeper level is what you're talking about, is at a much deeper level when we're just thinking about ourselves as beings and as spiritual beings and as part of, as I think you were describing, a universal spirituality.
Yeah.
I don't know the words for any of this at the moment. But I just find myself, very, very moved and connected with what you're saying about that. And it's very liberating to hear somebody else talk about that experience, that being able to not move away, but what do we say? Integrate to a much larger degree a spiritual experience of our lives and whatever's gone before, without having to cling to the sense making, the pattern finding that we need to survive in the current neurotypical world, or to be brought up in it as we have been. And there was something else. No, I can't. It's gone. There was another little bit at the end, and I can't grasp it now. I had a few more words than I thought I did for that. Oh yes, that was it. So your way in. That's what I was trying to get to, I think, at a more superficial level earlier, that your way in was a pattern-seeking, number-driven. That's what I meant when I was saying it was an autistic way in. And I didn't mean that it's anything to do with, your autistic being directly related to what you were doing or your roots or anything. I just meant that your way, the mechanism for you getting in that hooked you.
Yeah. And that I trust.
That you trusted, yes.
It's pattern seeking.
Yes.
It's definitely pattern seeking.
Yes.
And potentially it also has something to do with astrological things as well. Like obviously those people would have the same star sign as me and be born.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So maybe have the same kind of traits that are often not, my star sign is not one of the most coveted star signs because we're often seen as not very nice to have around in a stereotype kind of way. We've got a lot of very good qualities as well.
Yes, you have.
But there's something, I think there's something about that too. Definitely the pattern seeking that I trust. I feel like whenever you were talking as well, though, I could see the point that you were making about autistic distress and how that manifests as maybe more of a left hemisphere kind of way of thinking that's concrete and everything's in boxes and everything's in columns, like the way that the architecture, actually the structure of the left hemisphere is set up, and then the right hemisphere is much more creative and free flowing and things like that. And sometimes with trauma, we don't have a very good bridge between the two, the corpus callosum, right. And that hasn't, so there's not so much of a bridge, and they're very split. I could see from a neuroscience angle how what you were saying fitted in as well. I could also see how, just to bring one of my favourites, Carl Jung, into the mix, like with the likes of the personality profiles that come out of that, and like Myers-Briggs and all the more popularised versions of that, where like the first, so the first of all, there's like I and E, so introvert and extrovert. And then there's like intuitive and sensing. And then the next ones are like thinking or feeling. And then there's judgment or perception. And in recent years, every time I do these personality tests, I'm always IN. So like I'm always introverted, like off the scale, and I'm always really strongly intuitive. Always have been, no matter what age I've done them. I've been doing them for about 30 years, on and off. But the last two things, the kind of whether I'm feeling or thinking, or whether I'm judging or perceiving, over the years, they've got closer and closer together, so that nowadays my personality comes out as INXX. So in other words, thinking and feeling are so balanced, and the judging and perception is so balanced that you just put X, because it doesn't go on either side of it. And there was something like that just made sense as well, just about like an integration. And I'm really talking in an overall therapeutic personality development evolution kind of way. I'm not really talking autism here, but I'm just opening it up a bit more. So yes, that was I just needed to speak out some of those things.
We need to. There's a part to this. These things are linked to HSP and to the sensitivity, particularly to coincidence. So if there's one kind of constant thing that's frustrated me so often, ever since I can remember, it's something about pattern seeking, making comparisons that everybody tells me are invalid, but particularly being sensitive to coincidence. And I think that's all. I think that there's a whole, and it is an autistic experience of this, I think, that is to do with a kind of an HSP experience and a pattern-seeking experience with coincidence. You've experienced a very specific version of that with the beginnings of this exploration that you're doing. It really I think I'm trying to say something like it really validates that experience for me of the pattern seeking, of the getting such a thrill, I mean a genuine deep soul thrill from coincidence and spotting those things and working out how unlikely it was, and it must, attributing meaning sometimes, but actually not necessarily. That was one of the gateways through to.
I've got a part inside of me that's reacting to that idea of coincidence. I'm like, it's not a fucking coincidence. Like,
no, but that's what I mean.
Their birthdays were the same for a reason. Yeah.
Well, no, literally coincidence. It doesn't mean it was an accident, and that's what the words come to mean.
Yes,
this is what's always.
But
I think that's what I'm trying. Okay, so I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's the frustration I'm trying to communicate that I've always had. That I will be so connected with those things because of the pattern that I've spotted, or the same thing, or the thing that's incredibly unlikely and has happened. And I used to keep a book of these. They were so deep, and there were so incredibly massive odds against any of these things happening. I used to write them down all the time.
Yes.
But nobody would take it seriously because I wasn't. I don't know.
I'm listening to you. I'm turning off my heater.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No, you stopped because I didn't give you attention.
No. Honestly, I was just struggling to finish the sentence because I don't really understand. I don't know how to communicate how frustrating it was to have that poo-pooed. That's the word I'm going to use. Constantly. And it's part of autistic joy as well, actually, that the extremes of the feelings that these things can bring up, or what looks like extreme, is not matched usually by those around us. And it's the same kind of frustration.
But synchronicity is a nicer
okay, that's
word.
a nicer word. That's a much nicer
Isn't
word.
that a nicer word?
Yes, I do like
Thank you, Carl Jung. Again.
Is that
I
his
just
word?
realised, yeah.
Is it? I never knew that.
He was really into synchronicity. Yeah.
But is that he invented the word? Is that what you're
I
saying?
don't know if he invented the word or not.
I didn't
but
know
he
that.
wrote a lot about it. I don't know why you brought HSP into that as well.
As it depends, I suppose, on what the definition is, and maybe my definition isn't quite right. And I saw your slightly disconnected look when the 2 times that I mentioned it. But to me, it's a number of sensitivities that are dialed up that are to do with being in tune. It's usually used, I believe, as a kind of a slightly more sciencey term for an empath.
Okay.
As I've heard it used, but maybe I'm using that wrongly. It's, so things like being very in tune with a person or an animal or the pattern spotting thing. I think as I understand it, it's a combination of those things, very much dialed up and very much in tune with, it would fit with a more spiritual way of talking about our experience as well as a neurological brain type way.
That's interesting. I think calling it an HSP will maybe have more the kind of associations that were coming up to me. That might be kind of confusing to some people listening, because a highly sensitive person, oftentimes people will take on that label rather than, like, I thought I was an HSP for 15 years before I realised I was autistic. And a lot of people will buy into that label because it's not so stigmatised as autistic.
Okay.
But actually,
I see what you mean.
Elaine Aron, who wrote about this back in the 1990s, she said it was the complete opposite of autistic. And she, in many ways, set up a real kind of division between autistic people and HSPs, and actually that's caused quite a bit of damage, and so there are a lot of autistic people who would say that HSPs are autistic, but actually just can't handle the label. They don't want to call themselves autistic. There's other people that say HSPs are under the neurodivergence label, but are distinct from autistic.
I wasn't thinking of it that way. Okay.
I would tick all the boxes for HSP, in many, many ways, and still, and I don't have a big problem. The biggest problem I have is the associations. It would be like taking the label of Asperger's.
Yes.
It doesn't serve.
I will
to do
revise
that.
My use of that phrase.
It's not the same as an empath, but I think that empath is what you really mean. That's the context that you're meaning it by. But the HSP is a bit of a controversial term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to look into that and see if there is some vagary around how that's used, because if it is that singular and it's troublesome in that way. All I know is that there's lots of different ways that I've heard it described, and some of them resonate, and they're the ones that are towards some kind of, more comfortable phrase for those who don't like airy, fairy, magic-y words than empath, which, for some people, that's too wacky.
Oh,
if it were down to me,
I think
that's very comfortable for me. But that's how I've always heard in the people that I've spoken to and that have identified themselves like that, and by definition they'd almost all be also autistic.
Yes,
is how they would use that. Is that part of their autistic experience, which is to do with feel, and I think my own therapist actually talked about it in these terms. A particular couple of experiences I had, which I told her about, and then she kind of brought that up in exactly the same context as empath. Anyway,
it may be, it may be that some people are seeing it that way, and I think definitely, we are highly sensitive, and I would talk about us as autistics being highly sensitive. The actual term HSP, though, that it comes from Elaine and there's this whole community, and it would not be synonymous with being an empath. But it's like, orchid children or any of these things that have been kind of devised to describe sensitivity, but then it's also become a profile. So it's more like, I am highly sensitive is different than I am an HSP. So, yeah.
I'm interested to see if there are people who do conflate those things, because I think
there probably are.
I think that's certainly how I've come across it. But
saying it on a podcast is going to bring controversy if we don't have this kind of...
No, and I wasn't actually trying to start that conversation now. I think originally what I was saying was that there's a part 2 to this that I think would like to go... I would like much more on the spirituality side anyway.
Yeah.
And for that to go onto the area of synchronicity and empaths and that side of the experience, because it's a part of me that I don't talk about very often at all, because it doesn't occur to me mostly, and because usually I suppose the people that I'm talking to would not be the people that would maybe be interested, or I don't know. I think maybe I over expect that kind of cynicism. But I would like to talk more about that. Yes.
autisticlicense@gmail.com. Do you want to hear this or not?
Of course you do.
Speak now.
They don't have to email in. I can sense it.
No, you can't.
I can sense the enthusiasm.
Do you want to hear updates about Leo's ADHD medication?
No.
Intent, or do you want to hear about spiritual experience?
Yes. As an autistic person.
You've just done an episode without giving an update, even though you're on full dose of ADHD medication.
Oh, well, I'm on... yes.
Do you want to do a very quick 5-minute
I haven't noticed.
I kind of think you
have
should.
not noticed a great deal of difference. The miraculous, I am going to use that word, effects of how the medication is helping me to focus and concentrate and get through stuff and feel brighter and more optimistic are definitely still there. And I will see my psychiatrist at this weekend to discuss what to do next.
Well, but has there been a big change between doubling it compared to the first?
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's what's really, really interesting.
That's what I'm saying.
You noticed the change
with this supposedly non-treatment dose. Yes,
non-treatment dose, but actually once you've gone on to the
it's still the same
standard normal dose. It's not really got any better.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have had 3 accidental caffeine exposures, and they were deeply unpleasant.
That's already been that's already been. There hasn't been a recording since you went on to the full dose, you see. So it kind of, for anybody who is following the podcast for that,
which is loads, yes.
Then that's good for them to get their little update there. Okay.
We need to wind up, don't we?
We need to wind up.
That was a good one, yeah.
So, thank you for being with us, lovely listeners.
Yes, indeed.
Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Autistic License podcast. You can connect with us via Instagram, Facebook at autisticlicense.com, or by email at autisticlicense@gmail.com. And we spell license the British way, LICENCE. We also have a thriving Facebook community. Search for Autistic License Siana and Leo, or click on the link in the show notes.